Hi everybody, this is Miranda Frankenbach, and today I'm going to give you all a little brief overview over the choral music in South Africa. So before we can dive into what music means to the South Africans, we have to first look at how we got to where we are today. We have to look at the historical context and what the social and political climate is like in South Africa. So there are indigenous Black South African tribes that are all descended from the Bantu tribe. They have split into the Soto and Nguni tribes, which have then split off into their own sects, including the Zulu, the Xhosa. There are so many other different tribes that come from this one Bantu tribe. So that makes up the Black South African population. The white South African population is made up of English-speaking people who have descended from British settlers or any other white European settlers, or the Afrikaners who have descended from the Dutch settlers. In the 16th and 17th centuries, the first European colonizers arrived in South Africa. This was the Dutch East India Company, and the arrival of these European colonizers led to conflict between indigenous African people groups and European settlers. So we had conflict going on between the Bantu tribes and the Dutch people, between the Bantu tribes and the British people, and because the British have also come into South Africa, there was conflict between the Dutch and the British as well. Today we know that South Africa is currently occupied by Great Britain. It is a member of the Commonwealth, which is a large umbrella of countries that are all under the monarchy of the United Kingdom. So that means that King Charles is the monarch in South Africa. And so from 1948 to 1994 is what we know as apartheid. Apartheid is very similar to the 1960s and segregation in the United States. South African politics was taken over by Afrikaners. Again, those are the white South African people that are descended from the Dutch. They kind of wanted to purify South Africa, politics and culture, and so policies were put in place to segregate the white and black South Africans. So after apartheid, black South Africans struggled to find what their identity was. There was pressure and kind of a crushing of an identity coming from the segregation laws that were put in place. There are just so many cultures and traditions being represented in South Africa, and so the black South Africans weren't quite sure what their identity was. Black nationalism is an effort that strives to improve the rights and statuses of black South Africans, even though there were limitations and restrictions that were put in place by the white South Africans. Nowadays, more and more people are returning to the traditions and customs of their ancestors, these clans that had their own beliefs and customs and traditions before the first European colonizers even set foot in South Africa. These traditions allow individuals to leave their own mark on their culture and can therefore result in a positive self-identity. So one of the ways that this is done in South Africa, and in Africa specifically, is by music. Music kind of inhabits every single part of life in South Africa, and it kind of helps to strengthen the identity of a clan or of a person. So one of these examples is called Ihubo, which translates loosely to chorus. This is a call and response type of song that there's a leader, which is usually the clan leader. He is giving the questions in the call and response, and then the rest of the clan is surrounded around, and they are the ones that are doing the answering. Many times this includes physical movement and dance and chanting. So I will show you an example of that now. So PowerPoint will not let me record the video in my narration, so I will be putting a link to this Ihubo video in the discussion board. So, in our tradition of choral music in South Africa, by far the most popular genre of this is iskatamia, which translates to tread carefully. This comes from KwaZulu-Natal, which is this little red circled portion in the southeast portion of South Africa. It is a rural region, and you'll hear me reference Durban, which is a city along the coast here. And for reference, Johannesburg is about here. So in the 19th and 20th centuries, people were forced to leave their rural communities for urban settings to find work. This was not their own choice. They were forced to do this because they had no other option. And so because they're leaving their homes and because they're leaving their traditions and customs, people would take solace in music and making music. So we have what is called iskatamia. These are male ensembles that can be between 4 and 20 people. There are really tight-knit 4-part harmonies, probably sometimes more. They're a cappella, and they do synchronized dance movements. A lot of lifting of the feet and putting them back down, kind of playing into that tread carefully idea. Iskatamia is also a call and response format. So one member of the ensemble will stand in the middle, and then everybody else will respond to the musical idea that the leader gives. Iskatamia has come to be regarded as one of the most powerful expressions of Africa's musical heritage and is one of Black South Africans' most resilient statements of defiance against apartheid. So iskatamia and choral music in general in South Africa really does a lot to strengthen the identity of Black South Africans. They're able to find meaning and purpose in what they're singing. This is a video example of iskatamia. Again, I will put these in the discussion board. But basically what's happening here is this is a group of schoolboys, and they are gathering together and singing this song. So there really are a bunch of different settings that this music can be sung in. There's no formal concert venue or rules that have to be followed when performing iskatamia. So going along with that, there are different occasions for when choral music was performed. There are kind of 3 different genres. Originally, this music was composed and performed for celebrations and rites of passage. So those would be weddings, funerals, birthday parties, celebrations, retirements, all of the things that happen in a natural life cycle. Most of these things are celebratory. Weddings bringing 2 families together. Funerals, even though they're sad, they're still unifying people in celebrating this life. Again, the whole overarching idea is that there is unity and cohesion in trying to find that identity. Again, iskatamia originated from Zulu migrant workers, and so that means that another genre of the songs that they sing are work songs. So work songs are coming from the experiences of the performer. And then thirdly, hymns. In the 17th through 19th century, there was a lot of Christian missionaries who came to South Africa and brought new musical ideas. That's where we see the 4-part harmonies coming in, and there's a lot of influence there. But also, people in South Africa were converted to Christianity. And so a lot of the music that these iskatamia groups sing come from hymns, psalms, biblical texts, praising God for what he's done. It's how they worship. And so another venue for how iskatamia is performed is through competitions. As you can see in that picture, it's kind of a formal competition, but I will talk about that more. So I will link these videos again in that discussion board, but escatomia can be performed in competitions, and that's probably the most common venue for how people get involved in escatomia formally. Again, music kind of inhabits everyday life, and people sing throughout their daily chores and house. But these formal escatomia ensembles, again, they choose a leader, and this is kind of how it differs from the ihubo that we watched earlier. In escatomia competitions, the leader of the group kind of inspires what the rest of the ensemble is going to sing. So it's not always an A-B type of format when you're dealing with this call and response. It's kind of less organized and less similar, I guess, if that makes sense. The leader of the group determines what the ensemble is going to sing, I guess. So these competitions take place in South Africa and all over the world, really, and usually come with cash prizes. And as you can see as you will see in the news article video, these competitions do a lot to strengthen the identity of the people who are participating in them. A lot of these people are young. They are in danger of habits that are not sustainable. Drugs, alcohol. She mentions prostitution in there. Kind of a way to help get these kids off of the street and into something that is productive and beneficial for their upbringing. So by far the most popular escatomia group is Ladysmith Black Mambazo. They are responsible for bringing escatomia and South African music outside of South Africa, really exposing the entire world to the music of South Africa. So this group was founded in 1960 by Joseph Shabalala in KwaZulu-Natal. So if we remember that little province that was highlighted in a couple slides back, this group is comprised of brothers and family members. Joseph Shabalala died in 2020, but 4 of his sons actually still sing in the ensemble today. And there are even a couple of members who are original to the ensemble. And the priority of Ladysmith Black Mambazo was, and still is, just as much about preservation of musical history as it is about entertainment. So the goal really is, yes, we want to entertain people, but we also know the importance of preserving and sharing the musical traditions of South Africa. So Ladysmith Black Mambazo actually started in escatomia competitions in the 1960s, but they were actually banned from competition because their harmonies were too polished and too tight. They were just legitimately better than everybody else, so they weren't allowed to compete because it was unfair. But they were allowed to perform as entertainment. They landed a record deal in the 1970s, and then in 1986, Paul Simon, who most of us will know as half of Simon and Garfunkel, he released an album in 1986 called Graceland, and it featured 2 songs with Ladysmith Black Mambazo on it. This helped escatomia. It was really like the catalyst for that break into mainstream music. They have won 5 Grammy Awards and just are by far the most accomplished escatomia group in the entire world. So this next video is them performing Homeless, which is one of the songs that is on the Graceland album with Paul Simon. Here are my resources. And then Nkosi, thank you. That is thank you in Xhosa. And I just have really enjoyed getting to learn about South Africa and its complex and rich history and how music weaves into that and how choral music specifically plays such an important role in the daily life and culture of Black South Africans. Overall, I feel like there's just such a heavy importance on how music is unifying in this world, no matter where we come from, no matter where, no matter what traditions we have or biases that we may or may not have. We all know what music is. We all have our own musical ideas and traditions, and we all like to listen to new music. And so I think that it's just really special that Escatamia specifically is so important for the unity and identity of the Black South Africans, but also in turn would be able to bring unity to the world, because we have learned about this type of music through ensembles like Ladysmith, Black Mambazo, that have gone out of their bubble, gone out of South Africa, and allowed us to come into their tradition and be a part of what they're doing and be able to learn and grow in our understanding of different cultures. And I think that's really important. So thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will link all of those videos. I especially think that the news article one is really important to watch, but I appreciate you all for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.